Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Kevin and this is the Wrenching Fool. So in this video we're in a new location here. We're in my kitchen here at my house. The last time I recorded in the office it just seemed a little bit so the kitchen's a nicer place. Anyway, in this video we're going to be talking about the 2019 Chevy Bolt EV that I own, and we're going to be going over the recent update from GM regarding the battery fires and the recalls and everything. We're going to kind of start from the beginning and work our way forward to the present. So let's dive in here on the computer. I've got to do this in sort of a PowerPoint style of presentation, otherwise I'm going to miss a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of information to go over, so let's dive in here. So again, we're talking about the 2017 to 2019 Chevy Bolt EVs and the battery fires and the battery recall that has happened as a result of that. So in this video, we're going to be going over just sort of the recall part of it. What is the problem with the battery fires? What's causing the issue? What has GM done so far? And then what did GM announce this morning that has changed things quite a bit and actually prompted this video to even be created? And then we'll go over why exactly GM is having this problem, or at least why I think they're having this problem based off of the research I've done and the research that a lot of other people online and around the world have done. And then we're going to go over what to do next, what I think you should do next, or what I would suggest you should do next, and what personally I'm going to do next. All right, so let's dive into this. Okay, so we'll start off with what exactly the problem is, and kind of go back to the beginning here. So about 15 so far, 2017 to early 2019 Chevy Bolt EVs, and then the European equivalent, the Opel and Vauxhall Ampera E's, they've caught fire, just spontaneously combusted on their own. And that's going between March 2019 up to the present date. And then breakdown here by the model year, at least as far as I've been able to find online, 4 of the 15 have been 2017 model years. 1 of the 15 have been a 2018 model year. And then unfortunately 9 of the 15 have been 2019 model year Chevy Bolt EVs and Opel or Vauxhall Ampera E's. Basically there, all of the 2019 model year Bolts or Ampera E's that have caught fire were built, early production is what they refer to it as. It's either late 2018, basically the start of when they started building for the 2019 model year, up to very, very early in 2019. And so far it appears that all of the fires have originated in the high voltage battery pack. So they are fires caused by a fault within the battery. All of the affected batteries were built by LG Chem, or LG Energy as it's sometimes known, in their South Korea facility. That's where all of the early Chevy Bolt batteries were built up to mid-2019 when Chevy started building or started working with LG here in the US, building the batteries at a GM/LG shared facility there in Holland, Michigan. And then of course all of the later Bolts up to the present, starting from 2020 all the way up to now, they use a completely different battery. The 2020 and 2021s use a 66 kilowatt hour battery, and then for 2022, I suspect it's the same battery, but I think they've just added, taken a little bit away of the overall capacity to make a buffer. They now currently advertise it as a 65 kilowatt hour battery, but I suspect it's probably the same battery. So what has GM done so far? Well, basically they've issued some recalls. If we go back to November 2020, GM issued recall N202311730, which basically in that recall they acknowledge that there's been battery fires and that those fires were as a result of something going wrong with the battery. And as part of that recall, they bring the vehicles in, the affected vehicles into the dealer, which again is 2017 to early 2019 Chevy Bolts. They inspect the vehicle battery and they see if it fails based on their current diagnostic processes. and then they replace the battery modules or the complete battery as needed. Along with that recall, they issued a software update. And basically all that software update did was limit the maximum state of charge of the battery down to about 90%. And they also recommended that anyone who either doesn't or can't come in for the software update, that you should on your own limit the maximum state of charge to about 90%. For 2017 to 2018 model year Bolts, you can do that using the Hilltop Reserve function. For 2019 Bolts, you can do it using the target charge level function. And there's lots of information online about how to do that. And then it was important for them to point out that this was an interim fix. This was not intended to be the final fix. This was basically them trying to mitigate or reduce the chance of any future battery fires by sort of addressing one of the main causes that they thought at the time was causing the battery fires, which is charging the vehicle up to a very high, nearly full state of charge. So fast forward a little bit further, May 2021, GM issues recall N202311731, quote, the final remedy as they're calling it. So with this recall, dealers will perform diagnostic procedures and replace battery modules that fail their updated diagnostic guidelines. They did update what they were looking for and what specifically they considered a failure in this recall. So in this diagnostics, technicians are looking at the difference in the cell average voltage and they're comparing it to the lowest cell voltage in the pack. And basically what they're looking for there is they're looking for a cell that is abnormally weak. The difference must be greater than 0.08 of a volt or 0.08 volts. Now the curious thing there is that that specification is actually more lenient than their previous specification that they allowed, which previously it was 0.07 or 0.07 of a volt difference. So they actually made it more difficult for the batteries to fail their diagnostics, which did raise some eyebrows of people who are paying attention online. And then dealers will also install what they call advanced onboard diagnostic software. And according to them, that software, among other things, has the ability to detect potential issues related to changes in battery module performance before the problems can develop. Basically, what they're hoping to do is diagnose failing batteries and catch them before they catch fire. The software update also includes a thermal propagation detection logic. And basically there, if their diagnostic procedure fails, both at the dealer and also the onboard diagnostic, they're hoping that they can at least catch the vehicle if they notice the battery starting to heat up abnormally on its own. It can alert you and basically give you enough time to hopefully unplug your vehicle, move it away from anything critical, or if nothing else, evacuate the building so that you're hopefully not in any danger of losing your life or anybody else losing their life. And they basically alert you that by setting off the car alarm, the theft alarm. So honking the horn, flashing the lights. And part of the software update also included changing the battery cooling and the charging logic to be more careful. I've actually gone over that in another video where they completely changed the charging curve for the vehicle. It makes it charge a little bit slower, not substantially slower, but a little bit. And then it also is a lot more aggressive with how it chills the battery. It starts cooling the battery at a lower temperature and it tries to get it to a lower temperature than it did prior to the software update. And then, of course, this, since they're considering this their final fix, or they were, it restores the battery capacity back up to 100%, although I should say it restores it to 100%, because in my experience, the battery capacity was actually reduced, in my case, by about 1.5 to 2%. I went from 61.7 kilowatt hours of capacity before the software update to about 60.4 kilowatt hours after the recall was performed. Now again, there's a bit of a grain, take that one with a bit of a grain of salt because it's all calculated. There's no way to completely know how much capacity the battery actually has. And again, yeah, this was supposed to be the final fix, but that kind of brings us forward to today and what GM has announced This morning, at the time of recording this video might go out afterward, but basically the morning of July 23rd, 2021. So before we go to what GM announced this morning, let's talk about July 14th, 2021. So between the time that GM released their final fix and July 14th, two more bolts unfortunately caught fire. And as far as we've been able to tell so far, both of those bolts had the final remedy applied to them. So they should have been fixed according to GM, and yet they still caught fire. So following that, on July 14th, GM released the following statement. And I'll let you read through that yourself, but basically what they're saying is that they recognize that both of these vehicles had had the software update applied, and then out of abundance of caution, they're recommending that any of the 2017 or 2019 Bolts that had previously been recalled should park their vehicles outdoor immediately after finished charging, and that they should not be charged overnight. Basically, they should not be charged unattended. So let's fast forward now back to today, this morning, July 23rd, 2021. GM announces recall N202343880. Oops. So, again, I'll let you read through that statement yourself, but basically GM is saying that, hey, these other vehicles have caught fire. Our remedy that we released previously does not appear to have done a 100% effective job at addressing the safety risk in all vehicles, so now GM is going to be recalling and replacing the batteries, or at least the affected modules, in all of the 2017 through 2019 affected vehicles. So they're going to be replacing the batteries in these affected 2017 to 2019, basically the early production 2019 Bolt EVs. And another concerning part of their statement is that basically they've said that the batteries have a simultaneous presence of two rare manufacturing defects in the same cell, and that's what's causing the fires. They don't really go into any detail about what those defects are, but if you followed at all what's been going on with the Hyundai Kona Electric, we can probably make a guess of what's going on. Now the downside here is, it's nice that they're finally deciding to replace the batteries. That's, in my opinion, something they should have done months ago. But the reality is that it's going to take GM and LG time to accumulate all of the materials to build the batteries that they need to replace all of these defective components. Again, that's what Hyundai is going through right now with their LG batteries. In the meantime, GM suggests that you do not charge your vehicle beyond 90%. So again, they're recommending for 2017 and 2018 vehicle owners that they should activate the Hilltop charging or Hilltop reserve, and then in 2019 vehicles, set the target charge level to be 90% or lower. And they're also recommending that you do not park your vehicle indoors, or if you have to charge it indoors, move it outdoors immediately after the charging is complete. So that's the same as what they had said there on the 14th. And they're, of course, again, also recommending that you don't charge your vehicle overnight, which for me, again, is a big deal. And then this is probably the biggest deal of all, unfortunately. They've said, do not deplete the battery to below 70 miles of range remaining. Now that's sort of an unusual number, and it changes a huge amount depending on how the vehicle is driven, what time of year it is, whether or not you're using the heat or the air conditioning, because that number is very variable depending on the efficiency that the vehicle is receiving or experiencing. But just to kind of give you a general idea, if you're using the EPA range rating of the 2017 to 2019 Bolts, which is 238 miles, 70 miles remaining would put you at about 30% state of charge. Based off of my calculations that I've done on my own vehicle, driving 70 miles an hour on the freeway during the summer, that would be about 35% state of charge. And then based off of what I've experienced in the winter, 70 miles remaining would be about 44% state of charge. So they're basically telling you that they want you to keep the battery no more or no less than 44%. They want you to keep that battery between, in the worst case, 90% to 44%. According to their EPA range ratings, they want you to keep it between 90% and 30%. So that means realistically, in the best reasonable case, if you're going by the EPA range rating, they're reducing the battery capacity down to 60%. Ouch. So let's go over why, in my opinion at least, why this is happening. Now, just some disclaimers here up front. I am not an electrical engineer yet, and I'm not a battery expert. I do have above average knowledge about EVs and batteries and stuff due to my profession as an automotive technician. I am ASE certified, advanced level ASE certified to diagnose and repair hybrid vehicles, full electric vehicles. So I kind of know what I'm talking about, but I am not engineering level when it comes to that. The thing that's further complicating things for people like me and anybody else that's trying to figure out what's going on is that GM is being very opaque about this problem. They are not sharing, they're not being transparent at all. They're just kind of spoon feeding us information and not really giving us anything to go by, which I think is really unfortunate. So what I'm about to tell you is, most of it at least, is not verified by GM or LG Chem. So a lot of it is speculation, sort of. I would call it more educated guesses than anything else. So one of the reasons this could potentially be happening is a software issue. Hopefully GM had tried to address that before, back when they did the final remedy recall. But I think part of the issue, or part of the potential issue, is that GM in the Bolt EV is using 100% of the available capacity of the battery. There is no top or bottom buffer at all on the Bolt. And this has been verified by people online by comparing the cell chemistry that's used in the Bolt, or at least what we know about it, and comparing it to other battery cells, lithium cells, that have information published about them. And if you compare the absolute maximum battery voltage that's recommended for those and the absolute minimum battery voltage that's recommended for those cells with that chemistry, GM is basically pushing it to 100% of that limit. Now, I've also shown it in my own calculations of battery capacity that GM is really pushing it to the limit. As I said earlier in the video, I've calculated the battery capacity as high as 61.7 kilowatt hours on my personal vehicle. Now, there's been some speculation that for 2019, at least the early 2019, GM used sort of like an interim battery that actually had about 62 kilowatts of overall capacity. But still, if it's 62 kilowatt hours total capacity and I'm able to access 61.7, that means there's not really a buffer at all. That's well within the range of, just calculation errors. And on top of that, LG labels the battery. There's actually physically a label on the battery that says 57 kilowatts, and that includes my Bolt. But as I said, I've shown as much as 61.7 kilowatts of usable energy available. Now, allowing the vehicle to access 100% of that battery capacity is great for range, but it decreases the reliability of the battery substantially, unfortunately. Part of the reason for that is that discharging the battery beyond the recommended level, it can cause all sorts of damage within the battery, but one of the primary ways that it causes damage is that it damages the separator plates that go between the different components of the battery. And if that separator gets damaged, it can cause internal short circuits, and that can lead to a fire. At the very least, even if the short circuits aren't enough to cause a fire, it can cause that cell to become effectively inactive or self-discharge itself. So it doesn't have as much available capacity. Now, a software update, of course, would be able to reduce the usable battery capacity, and it would solve the issue of overusing the battery. But that also would update GM to lawsuits and some rightfully very angry customers. If I buy a car that they advertise as having a 60 kilowatt hour battery and 238 miles of EPA rated range, and then they come back later and say, oh, well, we were using too much of the battery, we need to drop it down to 57 kilowatts, kilowatt hours and reduce your range down to 200 miles of range. That's a problem. I would be very angry about that. Now, before people get up in arms saying that GM is being stupid about this or whatever, and that, oh, I should have bought a Tesla, even though I own a Tesla, Tesla has done exactly the same thing in the past, and they're still getting in trouble for it. Now, another potential software issue could be a battery cooling or charging logic issue. If they are overheating the battery or not cooling it aggressively enough, or if they're charging it too aggressively or something along those lines, that could cause a damage within the battery, which could cause a fire as well. Both of these things were stuff that was changed by GM and LG with the final remedy. So presumably, if that's what the issue was, the final remedy should have fixed it, but we know now that it didn't fix it. So another possible issue, and what is most likely the issue with the Bolt, is that there's a hardware issue. GM and LG have identified the simultaneous presence of two rare manufacturing defects in the same battery cells as the root cause of the battery fire. So what they're saying there is, yes, there is a hardware issue in the battery. But unfortunately, GM and LG have not released any specific info on what that manufacturing defect is, or defects. Now, and as I mentioned earlier, Hyundai had a similar issue with the Kona Electric. And I know that from firsthand information because I used to have a Kona Electric, and one of the reasons that I sold it was because we were going through this exact same issue with the Hyundai. And Hyundai responded to it exactly the same way that GM has. It's like deja vu, really. So we don't know this to be the case 100% for sure with GM, but what we know and what Hyundai has admitted with the issue on the Kona was that the problem was determined to be a folded anode tab, which could result in lithium plating on the anode tab to contact and short circuit to the cathode. Now, again, I'm not a battery engineer, but basically if you think about it, the anode and the cathode, think of it as one's the positive and one's the negative, to put it into the simplest terms as far as batteries go. If you take the positive and the negative and you connect them directly together with no load or anything in between, you create a short circuit, which creates a lot of heat and can easily cause a fire. GM has previously denied that it has the same problem as Hyundai has with their LG battery packs, but the issue to me and to a lot of other people sounds eerily similar. Another consideration realistically is that LG Chem is having some really severe reliability issues recently. It's to the point of showing a trend of what I would call negligence in how they're building and assembling their battery packs, whether it's a lack of testing, whether it's a lack of quality control, who really knows? But there is definitely a trend that is starting to appear that makes it look like LG Chem is having some major issues with their batteries. So what do we do now? What is the next step? Well, for now, I would suggest that you do as GM suggests. Basically, if you have not gotten the final remedy recall, even though it's been proven not to 100% fix the issue, I would still recommend that you get it, and I would recommend that you get it as soon as possible. The reason for that is it has been successful at catching many failing battery packs. If you look around online, on forums, whatever, there's lots of people who have gotten the battery update and either the vehicle never left the dealership or shortly thereafter it flagged a fault with the battery and they're getting their batteries replaced as a result. And even then, if it doesn't catch the fault before it causes a major problem, they've at least added logic to the software so that if the battery does start to encounter a thermal runaway condition and it does start to get past the point of no return, it will give you an audible warning, hopefully before the vehicle catches fire. Again, that way if it's parked inside, you could probably get it out, or you could get yourself and your family out of the building into safety. On top of that, GM is suggesting to limit the charge to 90%, as we discussed, using the Hilltop Reserve or the target charge level, depending on the year of your vehicle. And then try not to drive the vehicle below about 70 miles of remaining range. In the case of, if you're going off of the EPA range rating, that's about 30% or 5 bars showing on the range remaining display on the dash. And then only park your vehicle outside, away from your house, or move it there immediately after charging. Again, this is just trying to mitigate the damage that may occur if the vehicle does catch fire. And then unfortunately, don't charge your vehicle overnight. As I've said, for me, that's a bummer because it's going to cost a lot more money, but I guess it's better to cost more money than to have my car catch fire and potentially burn my house down. So I think something that's important to bring up about this, it's more anecdotal than anything, but from what I've seen online, early 2019 vehicles seem to be more prone to failure. In fact, they are 9 of the 15 documented Bolt EV or Ampera fires were 2019s, built between October 2018 and February 2019. And as a point of reference, mine was built in 2018, October 2018. So I am right in that danger zone, which is why I'm taking so much interest in this, and it's part of why I'm making this video. In fact, going based off of the numbers, early 2019 Bolt EV and Ampera E owners appear to be more than twice as likely to experience a fire as a 2017 or a 2018 owner. And so for me personally, what I'll be doing next, or what I've already done personally, is GM is going to be repurchasing my 2019 Chevy Bolt EV. I've already come to an agreement with them. I've already worked out the details, and that's something I'm going to be going over in part 2 of this video. But basically, at this point, if you're concerned about the safety of your vehicle, and I would be, call GM, let them know. Because realistically, even if they are not the ones who built the defective batteries, they're still responsible for this. And you're the one who bought the vehicle from them. They need to take care of you. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. First off, you can call the EV concierge hotline, which is 833-EV-CHEVY, or the full number there, 833-382-4389. Or you can contact them the way that I did, and that's to go to the Chevy website using the link that's there, or at least the address that's shown there, chevy.com/contact/call-us. And then down in the middle of the page, there's a section there that says message us. And that gives you the option for online chat. Basically, it opens like an instant message type thing with them. I personally would recommend going that route. I don't like making phone calls. I'm very introverted that way. And then also right now, especially since this recall has come out, there's probably going to be a lot of people calling them. And the person that you're going to talk to with the EV concierge is probably not the person that you ultimately need to contact or talk to. So all you're really doing by calling them right now is just saying, hey, I have a concern, call me back, let me know what we can do. The other thing to keep in mind is if you decide that you want to just wait for a battery replacement, you want to keep your car and just wait to see what you can get for battery replacement, it's probably going to take several months. If you look at the closest comparison we have right now is the Hyundai Kona, it's taken them nearly 6 months to really start doing any battery replacements. They announced their recall for the batteries for this, again, the same battery fire issue. They announced that they were going to be replacing the batteries back in February of 2021, and they are only just now starting to replace batteries. So just keep that in mind if you're going to hold on to your car and just wait for the battery replacement. Other than that, I think that's it for this video. Again, there is going to be a part 2 where we're going to go over at least my experience with the buyback process. My Bolt has not been replaced yet, but again, we'll go over that in the next video. So for this video, I really appreciate you watching. If you liked this video, please hit the like button. If you'd like to see more about this subject or any of the other stuff I've covered on the channel, please consider subscribing. You'll also get notified when I post up the next video or videos about the buyback process. Otherwise, thanks for watching.